Welcome back to the Dormant Politics Podcast. My name is Justin Fisher.
I'm Nolan Flaherty.
I'm Austin Vertine. The Bears lost yesterday, which I could go on for hours, but today we're actually going to talk about libertarianism, the 2018 governor's election in Illinois, and the 2018 midterms in general with our special guest, Jacob Rail.
So as we mentioned, today we have a special guest with us. His name's Jacob Rail. He attends the University of Illinois Springfield with us, and he's a libertarian. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to libertarianism, but we're going to give you a little bit of a clip here that can sort of explain how things can be misconceived when it comes to being a libertarian.
Should someone have to have a government-issued license to drive a car?
Hell no.
What's next? Requiring a license to make toast in your own damn toaster?
The license to drive? You know, I'd like to see some competency exhibited by people before they drive.
So that was from the presidential election. It was the Libertarian debate. It was hosted by Larry Elder. So Jake, why don't you introduce ourselves to maybe talk about a little bit about the clip and how it kind of differs from the Illinois Libertarian Party?
I wouldn't say there's fully a difference, but when you look at those candidates on stage, the guys talking, it started with Austin Peterson, who is no longer actually a member of the Libertarian Party. Recently, he ran for U.S. Senate in Missouri as a Republican, coming in third with 8%. Anyway, sorry, Austin.
As a Republican, he got 8% of the vote?
In the primary, yes.
He's a pretty smart dude. I mean, it makes sense that he'd want to run as a Republican to try to actually get into office.
He is a good guy, but, when it comes to the Libertarian Party, he really did disavow, something very important. The one thing that no Libertarian can, challenge to be in the party. But the second guy that spoke when he mentioned toasters was, I believe that was Darryl Perry, who's definitely more of a radical member of the party.
He dominated the stage in that debate. I've watched. Have you guys watched the whole debate? It's hilarious.
I've actually watched it multiple times.
Darryl Perry is so funny. I think Larry Elder should be on that stage. I think Larry Elder would be a decent libertarian candidate. Maybe. Anyway, how does it differ a little bit from the Illinois Libertarian Party?
Well, the Libertarian Party, like any political party, is sort of a big tent organization and group, and so you have different factions within it. What you see a lot of times with candidates who get up there is they sort of have this very powerful or radical rhetoric, such as with Darryl Perry commenting about licensing for toasters, practically, as a joke on needing a license. But a lot of people in the Libertarian Party today, especially after the 2016 election, aren't some radicals. They're not some anarchists. They're not some the state shouldn't do anything except military, but a lot of them are just moderates, people who look at it and they're like, wow, I want government accountability. I just want lower taxes, Second Amendment rights, or I just don't want someone who's a Republican or a Democrat anymore. Mm-hmm. And so something that I see very largely with the Illinois Libertarian Party is that it is this big tent because it's not these radicals. You're just getting moderates, independents, and people who don't align with the major two parties stepping up and joining because they want to help make a difference.
Well, I think that definitely there was a move towards more a libertarian approach for the Republican Party, but that was all before Donald Trump came into office. Mm-hmm. Now there's more of a little bit, you can see the real separation between the establishment Republicans and what the Libertarians believe. So it's kind of interesting to look at that contrast and how it affects in Illinois, especially with the Libertarian Party. So, yeah.
What campaigns are you working on in the state of Illinois for the Libertarian Party?
So right now I am the campus coordinator for Cass Jackson's campaign for governor. And prior to that I've worked on some Republican campaigns, or I've helped out with walking in parades for multiple Libertarian statewide candidates. But primarily I try and help coordinate for Cass Jackson, at least on campus. But that has also involved bringing other statewide candidates here as well, such as we had Bubba Harsey, who's the Attorney General candidate, come and speak with people at the Involvement Expo.
Oh, Attorney General for the Libertarian Party, right?
Yeah. Well, he's
candidate.
Yeah, the candidate.
He's running against Erica Harold and Kwame Raoul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which he himself is a perfect example of libertarianism in our party, I guess, because he is not by nature a libertarian. He's more of a moderate individual who just thinks there needs to be someone who's not a member of the main two parties there to keep everyone in check. And so he comes on there and he agrees with some of the stances of the party, but not all of them. He's more of an independent mind, and that's definitely more of what people coming to our party have been in the past few months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does Cass Jackson offer in this year's governor election that someone like Pritzker or Rauner does not offer, besides the millions of dollars that have been put into the campaigns of each of the Democrat and the Republican.
He offers about 8% of the vote, give or take. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't need to take a shot at the Libertarians. I apologize.
No, it's fine. Looking at polling numbers, it's a little gracious than the polls have given us recently. But
it's lower than, what is he at?
It put him between about 6 and 7, but a lot of those
Okay.
polls haven't actually included his name.
Oh,
those are
okay.
just the people who have straight said, "I'm supporting Cash Jackson."
Yeah, which I think is pretty good for somebody
yeah.
that doesn't have that great
No,
name
and-
recognition.
And this ties into what you asked about, what's he going to bring to the table besides, like, billionaires? Well, a big appeal to Cash is that he's not another billionaire trying to run for this office. And honestly, looking back at past Libertarian candidates, we've barely raised any money. Hundreds, maybe a couple $1,000s. So it sounds bad when I say that Cash has only raised $25,000, $30,000. I think. I'm not fully for sure, but that's about the range. And people go, oh, that's almost nothing. But if you look at it, if we're reaching 6 to 7, and this is probably more like 10 up to 15% of people with $30,000, what does that say about two men who are literally spending $200 million each just to get like 30-40%? There's like an out of touch thing there. I mean, one candidate is being investigated for trying to hide up that whole thing with the veterans dying, and then another candidate committed tax fraud, and you have both of these situations, and people are looking at it and they're like, why are the major parties giving us these candidates that really are sort of out of touch with the regular person in Illinois? And the big thing that Cash Jackson brings to the table is that he's not a billionaire. He's just a regular guy. He's literally middle class. I don't think he put too much of his own money into the campaign because he didn't have that much to give. And he's stepping up to fight because he had something to fight for. It's just not him trying to attain political power. He knew this was going to be an uphill battle, and he's still trying. He's still putting in his all.
As a conservative, and I think if we went down a list of issues, we probably agree on a lot of things. As yourself as a conservative libertarian is probably the most correct term to define yourself. If I'm wrong.
It depends. I have Republicans tell me I'm a left-leaning libertarian. I have Democrats tell me I'm a right-leaning libertarian. I'd say I have more of a conservative twinge depending on the issue.
Okay, but being more you have to analyze the political realities of any given election, right? So supporting a libertarian who analyze the realities of what's going to happen in November 6th, right? Mm-hmm. Cash Jackson will not become governor of Illinois, but what he's going to do, and as well as Sam McCann, who's running as the Conservative Party, or is it he's running
as a Conservative
Party?
Okay.
So there's two third-party candidates, Cash Jackson and Sam McCann, that are both running on this, almost at least right-leaning ideal, right? It's going to be Republicans or conservatives that are going to be supporting Cash Jackson necessarily more than it's going to be Democrats, right? So, I mean, somebody who's voting for Cash Jackson or Sam McCann, realistically speaking, all that's going to accomplish, because they're a third-party candidate, they're not going to win, right? Realistically, what that's going to accomplish is just going to pull votes from Bruce Rauner.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, because if you look at the 2016 polling data, you can see that Gary Johnson actually took more voters from likely Democrat voters than Republican voters. There were a lot of people that I think voted for Bernie Sanders that actually ended up voting for Gary Johnson instead of Trump or Hillary.
So it pulled more liberal voters.
It was about even, but I think it was the first election where it pulled more from Democrats than Republicans. And when I say more, I'm not saying exponentially more. Just a smaller percentage more, because historically, the Libertarian Party has been described as a spoiler for right-leaning candidates. But in more recent years, there's definitely been this difference, I guess, and that you had an older generation within the Libertarian Party, and now you're seeing a resurgence coming in with, the next generation that's now hitting voting age. And you're seeing this huge growth in the party. And, when you're talking about stealing votes from Rauner, looking at this specifically, Sam McCann, which I have no problem with third-party candidates, but I do get the vibe that he was specifically running because of his feud with Rauner. Mm-hmm. And so that I think that was his goal. I can't, don't take me for sure on that. But with Cash Jackson, he wasn't running to split the vote. He wasn't running to, take conservative votes. He's running because he had a platform and issues that he wanted to bring forward, especially with, family courts and whatnot. But he's pulling more than just conservative voters. In fact,
Sam McCann is, or Cash Jackson?
Cash Jackson.
Yeah.
Cash Jackson is pulling independents, Democrats, and Republicans. He's pulling people who are just tired of the candidates. I actually have had some people, self-described very liberal individuals, come up to me and tell me that they're voting for Cash Jackson simply because Pritzker is this out-of-touch billionaire, and Cash Jackson has a record of going out and sticking up for the rights of minority groups in America. He was actually one of the guys who was with the veterans at Standing Rock, to protest that pipeline and whatnot.
I guess the interesting thing about libertarians is that it's not necessarily a political ideology, right? You could be a liberal libertarian, you could be a conservative libertarian. If a liberal and I went down the lists of what we disagree on, a libertarian conservative and a libertarian liberal went down the list of things they agree or disagree on, chances are they probably disagree on a lot of things, but what they agree on, the fact is that they don't want the government to solve them. So I think
That's the philosophy in itself, I'd argue.
My grievances are more with Sam McCann, right, than rather than Cash Jackson. Because I think Cash Jackson is going to pull, both Democrats and both Republicans, and it's going to affect Rauner and Pritzker equally as to not greatly impact the outcome of the election. But personally, I think Sam McCann is not somebody who's going to win the election. And I really think a vote for Sam McCann is really just a vote for J.B. Pritzker.
Well, I'm going to be honest. At this point, if you weren't going to vote Rauner anyway, then you're not taking your vote. You can't claim that a candidate was taking the vote. And there were tons of Republicans who would not vote for Rauner again after, his sort of lie. He went up and said he was not going to have a social agenda, and then he expanded state-funded abortions, which really took that conservative pro-life base in Southern Illinois and really pushed them a different direction. Plus that
primary, it was really close.
It was really close.
He almost lost to Jeannie Ives, who was about the most insane woman that I've ever seen, just on a political...
Well, she was very conservative when it came to, abortion and other issues.
Socially, she was...
So I think that's why most conservative Republicans in Southern Illinois felt, driven apart from Rauner and what drove them to the primary.
Just to give you a perspective on Jeannie Ives, let's listen to a little clip on a commercial that Jeannie Ives put out here. And we'll just show you what kind of woman that she was. And it's how interesting it is that she was able to compete with Bruce Rauner in the primaries.
Stay tuned for a special message.
We want to say thank you.
Thank you, Bruce Rauner.
Thank you for signing legislation that lets me use the girls' bathroom.
Thank you for making all Illinois families pay for my abortions.
Thank you, Bruce Rauner, for opposing law enforcement and making Illinois a sanctuary state for illegal immigrant criminals.
Thank you, Bruce Rauner, for the taxpayer bailout of Exelon, with the largest electricity rate hike in U.S. history.
Thank you for making the rest of Illinois bail out Chicago teacher pensions, and for giving Rom everything he wanted, and more.
Thank you, Bruce Rauner, for not being in charge, leaving Mike Madigan in charge.
I am not in charge. I'm trying to get to be in charge.
So obviously, it's interesting to see that a lot of support for Republicans and Bruce Rauner is not there. And so I think it's good to have a party like the Libertarians. Like, if I were to see myself and like the main ideal of the Libertarian Party, in that it's anti-establishment. It doesn't want the same Republicans or Democrats being in office, and that's an ideal that I uphold. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a libertarian. I lean just sort of in the middle on both issues, but I think it's good to have a party like that people can lean on. And even though they're not going to pull the votes to maybe necessarily compete with Pritzker and Rauner, it's good to have them there. And if they continue to keep growing and other independent parties can really put up a fight, I think it'll be good for the future of our country. So,
well, I mean, a big important part of this is in Illinois right now there's only two established parties, Republicans and Democrats. And what that means is only those two parties can have primaries and lower ballot access requirements for signatures and stuff like that. If a candidate from a smaller party, such as Sam McCann's Conservative or, the Libertarians, get 5% with any statewide candidate in this election, that party will become established, which means that they can now run primaries, elect precinct committeemen.
They'll be able to be on the debates as well. That's a huge part.
Well, it's not a guarantee to be invited to the debates, but what it does is it makes the ballot access 5 times lower. So, for instance, to get on the ballot, Bruce Rauner would only have to get a minimum of 5,000 signatures, valid signatures, and Cash Jackson, for instance, had to get 25,000. So realistically, you have to double that number to even get in. So for Bruce, you'd need 10. For Cash, you need 50. And obviously, Cash and McCann both made the ballot, so they did that. But if if one of them gets 5%, they have primaries, then you're going to have another option in upcoming elections. And a lot of Illinois seats, whether it's municipal or state or whatnot, go uncontested. I don't remember exactly the number, but I thought it was somewhere close to like 60-70% of seats go uncontested
on county boards and state state
Yeah,
representatives.
I mean, we saw Mike Pence come down here last week and actually promoting Rodney Davis, just trying to grasp onto those final percentage points and get those final voters to come out for Rodney and try to actually beat it. Justin, you want to give a little bit of perspective on that?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you were there.
essentially, I went to go to this private fundraiser where the people there donated for anywhere from $500 to $10,000 to be at this event. Since I work on Rodney Davis's campaign, I was invited to go work there, guide people to go down to the stairs, whatever. So essentially what Mike Pence was doing is building, there was a CNN article and I think a New York Times article about this as well. What the GOP is trying to do is we're in the last month of the election, so they're getting really desperate. Statistically speaking, according to Nate Silver, the Republicans only have a 1 in 4 chance of keeping the House. So the GOP is trying to build a firewall around the campaigns that they can keep, and they're abandoning the campaigns that they know they're going to lose. So that's why Mike Pence came down to Springfield to be able to build this firewall around Rodney Davis's campaign and make sure that the 13th congressional district in the state of Illinois is kept. But I think what we see in differences with the state representatives is, you have to look at these realistically, right? A congressman in Washington, D.C. pulls in $174,000, right? A state representative in the state of Illinois, one of the highest paid state reps in the country, makes about $67,000. So a lot of these people start their careers before they go. They start their careers, they start their families before they run for state office. A lot of these people aren't career politicians, so they eventually leave that office to go back to their career and stay with their kids. So a lot of these seats are going uncontested because a lot of people aren't willing to run for state office.
Well, that is definitely part of it. But if you look at it, there are actually some politicians in Illinois who have never held a previous job, to my knowledge. Or if they did, I think there was one state rep who was appointed while she was in college or something. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I imagine.
Avery Bourne was, 22, 23 when she first got office?
I'm not sure. I know she was one of the youngest state reps that we've ever had.
I think she was appointed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
her first term was appointed.
Which
she basically became. She got close with the governor, and the governor was able to back her campaign when Bruce Rauner was popular.
And I've met Avery Bourne before. She was a nice lady. Yeah, and Sarah Jimenez, Tim Butler, all the state reps around here. But someone can be nice and still be a terrible politician. I'm not saying any of those people were, but looking at these uncontested races, you have people always complain that we need to do something different. You need to get out and vote. Well, people aren't stepping up and running. Why? Because Republicans don't want to fund candidates in districts that they know they're not going to win. They're not going to waste money, and if they're not going to throw money there, why would you step up and run? Well, the biggest thing about getting another party on the ballot is Libertarians. They're used to running, even recognizing that they may not have a shot at winning. But they're willing to step up and run. And if Libertarians get ballot access, that means it's going to be easier for us to run candidates. And so you're going to see districts that are normally uncontested probably have at least a third-party candidate challenger. And while it may not change anything necessarily, it's going to open up the thing to new conversations. You're going to have people step up and be like, oh, there's another party. There are more ideas. And now at least there's an option. Because does democracy really work when you only have one choice?
Well, this is a key question I have for you, Jacob. And it has great effect on libertarian, the ideology, what their strategy is. Because just in 2012, we saw great strides being made with libertarians through the Republican Party. We saw people like Ron Paul energize a base in the Republican Party that clearly has libertarian leadings. And so my question is, and this is regarding the future of libertarians, is the goal now in the post-Trump era to create a new party and to try and get that established? Or is it to try and build a base through the Republican Party where you can finally get some power through Congress? We have people like Rand Paul that are in Congress that have very strong libertarian ideologies. Or can you do both at the same time, or is it an either-or situation?
Well, first off, there's definitely a split going on. You have the Liberty Movement and then the Libertarian Party. And it's clear the Libertarian Party is specifically its own little entity, and it's part of the Liberty Movement itself. But the Liberty Movement is an overarching thing that exists outside of parties. It's definitely more prevalent in the Republican Party than the Democrat Party. But it's this streak of just libertarian-leaning individuals that are stepping up and getting involved and trying to push things. And, you talking about congressmen or representatives that are, libertarian-leaning in the Republican Party, that's perfectly true. You have people like Rand Paul. You have Congressman Justin Amash, Thomas Massey. These people that definitely have anti-establishment, smaller responsible government with, like, social tolerant-type policies going on. It's definitely there in the Republican Party, but it's dying. In the post-Trump era, you've seen this shift. For all these politicians that used to come out and hate Trump, it's like they've embraced him and what he stands for as conservatism, even if his views did not align with theirs previously. And I think what Ron Paul did, and while he definitely sparked that libertarian surge, in the Libertarian Party today, a lot of people I met joined the party after Ron Paul's presidential campaign. But a lot of people who stayed at the Republican Party, they initially went for him because he was the anti-establishment candidate. And those same people moved over to Trump. Not all of them, obviously, but a chunk of them definitely did. And they ended up embracing him and his policies.
So are you saying that in the Republican Party, it was less the embrace of libertarian ideals that attracted people to Ron Paul, but it was his anti-establishment.
I'd say it was both. It was definitely both, but there was that split afterwards of the people who either stayed with the people who went to the Libertarian Party. The people who stayed with were more likely to embrace Trump than those who left. But you still have people in the Republican Party. Like, the Libertarian wing of the Republican Party definitely is one of the most outspoken against Trump. But you're seeing declining support of it. I mean, even Rand Paul has become buddy-buddy with Trump in recent times.
A little bit. It's kind of been disappointing for someone like me, who I really liked Rand Paul. He was...
I still like him. He's just... I think he's...
You have to analyze the realities, as a senator. You can't... It's very difficult to be a Republican senator. Well, I mean, look at Jeff Flake. The dude is almost being ousted from the Republican Party.
Yeah. Well, I think the Republican Party showed their true colors really the 2016 election and the direction maybe that they're going to go in. And that they didn't want to really go rogue and embrace the libertarian values that they were, and they wanted to stick to what they had, and what they had was Trump, which was the easiest option, and that he was going to attract as many voters as possible with some of the language that he was using, and just the overall image of having Trump be run as your party platform.
But that was the complete opposite of Ron Paul and libertarianism. Trump is an authoritarian.
Trump is definitely an authoritarian.
Yeah.
But there is... At the national level, there is that decline. But there's something good happening at the local level. Within the Republican... Well, it's not the Republican Party itself. But there are activist groups like Young Americans for Liberty, who are libertarian-leaning conservative activist organizations. They're going around and, they...
What?
Well, they couldn't themselves, endorse candidates. But recently they started a program called Operation Win at the Door, where they are allowed to go and endorse candidates and send people to campaign for them, not with them. They can't coordinate, I don't think. But in doing so, they endorsed a whole bunch of liberty-minded Republican candidates at the state level. State representatives, state senators. And in doing so, a vast majority, I believe, of their candidates won their primaries. And they're actually looking good going into their general elections.
So do they run does Young Americans for Liberty run a big door-knocking campaign for candidates they want to endorse?
It's newer, but they're definitely out there supporting these libertarian, liberty-minded Republican candidates.
Okay.
And there's tons of good examples of the establishment trying to stop these guys and get them out of office, or just not get them in the first place. And groups like this are definitely stepping up and at least bringing liberty at the state level back to the Republican Party where they can. It's not going to be everywhere. It's not going to be huge.
And even at the national level, we saw I believe it was the biggest voter turnout of third-party candidates being voted for in the 2016 presidential election. Mm-hmm. So Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, they pulled in a lot of votes just because people don't like these establishment candidates. And I'm one of those people. I think that the Republican and Democratic values that we've seen over the years are getting worse, and they're just the same old people in office holding these stubborn values. We haven't seen much change in between the two parties, and that's something that really bugs me the most, and why I find myself in the middle as a moderate.
Well, I mean, the Libertarian Party itself this year is going to blow away any past records, especially for midterms. Because if you look at it, generally, as an average, I'd say it's about 1% to 2% generally throughout the country for offices they get votes for. This year it's going to be vastly different. I mean, in Illinois, you got Cash Jackson polling at 6 to 8%. In Iowa, you got Jake Porter running for governor polling at 7%. And he was left out of all debates, but because of that, he got huge media coverage. In New York, you got Larry Sharpe for governor polling at 13% in the most recent poll.
Even Gary Johnson is coming back in the Senate race in New Mexico.
Yep, he's polling at about 30%. He's only a couple points down from the Democrat.
He's running as a Libertarian?
Yep. This race, which was safe Democrat before Gary went in, is now, I think it was lean Democrat or toss-up because of Gary's entry into the race.
Okay. What is Cash Jackson, out of curiosity, what does Cash Jackson's career look like? I know he was, I believe he was a combat veteran.
Yeah, so I don't know everything about Cash Jackson's past. You know, I've only met him about a year ago.
It's not widely available information either.
But, I mean, he talks about it. You know, if you ask him about it, he'll talk about it. But he was a 20-year Navy veteran.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he served for 20 years. I think it was 2016 when he got out, and then he was a reserve sheriff for a little while.
Wow.
And then he decided to run for governor because there was a bunch of things going on, like family courts and, you know, issues just going on between him trying to be active in his children's life. And it inspired him to run and step up so he could make a difference or at least change the conversation, which... a big thing about third parties historically in the United States is that they make an issue that wasn't previously an issue something that people care about. And so you have previous parties that were single issue, and then the Democrats and Republicans will have to absorb them. Not saying that's going to happen with the Libertarian Party, but at least if people are voting in large enough numbers for a specific issue, the other parties can step up and take a stance on it.
Well, I definitely think it's important to consider not only just being a Republican or Democrat, but just to have your own ideals. Maybe consider the Libertarian Party as an option. People often overlook these smaller third parties, but I think they have a significant impact on at least the voting turnout of the Republicans and Democrats. We talked about how they can pull away votes, or how they can themselves just stand alone as being organizations or groups of people that have their own ideals. And you definitely can't just shy away from looking into these organizations and making your own beliefs, because when it comes down to it, when you try to get into a party, it's never going to fully represent you. So you really just have to do your best and try to determine what you believe in, what you stand for, and where you stand in terms of whether you're Republican or Democrat, or if you want to go for a third party. So I think it's great to see that perspective that you provide us, Jacob, and I want to thank you for coming on this podcast. I think it was pretty productive, and it'll be interesting to see how the governor's race ends up turning out. As I
think we know how it's going to turn out.
Pritzker's leading by like 16 points.
Vote JB.
Don't vote JB. He's a scumbag. He's
get out.
Come on.
Who are you voting for? Or is it Mr. Middleman?
I'll be voting for Bruce Rauner.
I'd probably vote for Rauner, to be honest. I'm not going to go for Pritzker just because I think he's a
bum.
A tool of Madigan. I think all the money that he puts forward doesn't really represent the democratic values of that.
He's got some nice vests, though.
JB?
Yeah,
he's got some.
I'm still waiting to hear his dad
I've met
jokes.
JB. He just has an electric personality.
I think if I was worth $3.5 billion,
explain. I want Austin to explain his conversation with JB.
I would enjoy that.
It weirded me out a little bit, but he was pretty happy about it. So
I met JB Pritzker at President Obama's speech at the University of Illinois. I also met Dick Durbin, but he didn't really offer any story like JB's. So I go up to JB and he asked me, what I'm majoring in, and I told him political science, and then I don't know what I'm going to major, what my other major is, and JB was talking about, you always just want to have more than just political science on your record. That's really helpful, right? Even though JB's never had a political office in his life. So after a little bit of talking, I asked him, hey, can I take a picture with you, right? And JB made it really awkward, almost a bit sexual. He was like, we're in this moment right now, you and me, right now, in this hall. Why not? Let's just do it.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was a great picture, though. And
was it weird? Like, was it funny, or were you uncomfortable?
It was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was. And compared to meeting Rauner about a week before
really
that,
go Springfield.
Rauner,
he's an awkward guy.
He is really awkward.
That's all he said to us.
Yeah.
We told him we'd go to U of I Springfield.
He goes, "Go Springfield."
Go Springfield.
He's not a very personal. I don't know how a dude that isn't very good at interacting with humans has a net worth of close to $1 billion.
It was just that Pritzker just seemed like a personable.
If I was worth $3.5 billion, you bet your ass I'd be a personable guy.
Give us a perspective on Cash Jackson. Is he the same way, or like?
Cash Jackson is probably one of the most personable candidates you will ever meet. In fact, I brought him to campus last April, and I think about 40 people over the course of the whole time he was there stopped by to meet him. And besides the people who were like dead set campaign workers for JB or for Rauner, most of the people that came in and listened to him speak, even those who were hesitant or questionable, by the time they left, they're like, I don't, I gotta vote for him. Or, they're just, they feel like...
They feel like he's an actual person,
he's
not
a real
just
person. And, I am fine with everyone having their views, whoever you vote for, but I ask that you at least give him a chance. In about a week or two, he'll be here on campus. Hope that you guys will be willing just to meet him at least and just say hello, and then maybe develop opinions.
So hopefully you don't define the Libertarian Party as what was held on that debate stage with Larry Elder at the presidential election. As hilarious as it would be, it doesn't necessarily relate to the Illinois Libertarian Party. So thank you, Jacob, for coming on, explaining what the Libertarian Party in Illinois means to you, what it means in the future, and how it's affecting the 2018 elections right now. So thank you very much, guys. Again, my name is Justin Fisher.
I'm Nolan Flaherty.
And I'm Austin Vertine. Remember to keep listening on Spreaker and subscribe to our YouTube page and follow us at Dorm Room Poly on Twitter.
Thanks, guys.